Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Chhoda and I am indoors. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the speed of implementation, the speed of execution of the $400 a week. How fast is it going to get out to people? And there are some encouraging signs from the administration. There's been some coordination with state governors because there was a conference call with state governors, and it seems like this money is actually going to get to people quickly. Now, I've presented both sides of the argument. Some people have said that it's going to take several weeks, potentially months for this to get to people, but the administration is saying that it's going to get to people in some. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said 1 to 2 weeks, and the Vice President said immediately. So I'm going to go over that in this video. Also in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the importance of getting our kids, getting our children back to school. That's extremely, extremely important. And I'm going to highlight a segment from the Vice President that talks about the importance of getting our kids back to school, because that's such an important part of the economic recovery. Now, before I get started, I do want to address less than 1% of our viewers and of our subscribers who complain. What do kids have to do with this? I would say, with all due respect, kids have actually a lot to do with the economic recovery. Without our kids getting back to school, our economy won't recover. And I do believe some of us just need to grow up, all pun intended, and just accept that, embrace that, and recognize that. I have two young children, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and my 5-year-old was supposed to go to kindergarten, and we're going to have to make some alternative arrangements for my son, and that has actually impacted our family dynamic for me and my wife. So there is a real economic impact for kids if kids don't go back to school, not only for the economy and for parents getting back to work, but also for the development of the child. And because children get the nutrition, get the psychological, the emotional support at school that they wouldn't normally get at home. So with all that being said, let me get started. In a recent briefing at the White House, the president specifically talked about his executive orders on payroll, on the payroll tax cut, on evictions, on the $400 a week unemployment benefit, which is essentially the lost wages assistance program, and I have done other videos about that, and on student loans. Let's take a quick look at what the president said in the press briefing.
Took executive action in its signing to save American jobs and support American workers. I signed directives to give a payroll tax holiday with the understanding that after the election, on the assumption that it would be victorious for an administration that's done a great job, we will be ending that tax. We'll be terminating that tax. On the other hand, the other group wants to raise taxes, and they may want to leave it where you pay it. But the payroll tax is a big deal for people. It's a tremendous saving for people, and we're going to be doing it, and we intend to terminate it at the end of the appropriate period of time. It's for those making less than $100,000 through the end of 2020 to provide an extra $400 per week, also in unemployment benefits, and to extend the freeze on home evictions. We want to extend the freeze so people aren't evicted. It's not their fault that the virus came from China. It's China's fault. And to suspend payments on student loans through the end of the year and then beyond. And again, they're paying interest on loans, and they're not allowed to go to their college. So we're going to suspend payments on student loans through the end of the year, and then another extension most likely, because it's not fair to the students to have to pay when the colleges aren't doing the job of getting open. And I think probably many of them could be open. So I want to thank you all. I'm sorry for the disturbance before.
Also, another thing really quick for the less than 1% of my viewers who'll find a reason to complain and say, hey, I can watch the clips on my own, or I didn't show this clip or that clip, or some element of partisanship or the ads or whatever. I have to tell you that a lot of time, effort and research goes into the creation of these clips. We analyze several news clips from start to finish. We identify key comments at critical moments. We piece them together so you don't have to. We create a narrative, and then we create a script for me. I record the videos. So if you feel that effort isn't worthwhile for you, then no hard feelings. You can go and find those clips on your own, and our community will not miss you. But I just wanted to let you know that, because nobody, I believe, does it as professionally and as cleanly as we do. And most of all, you get to consume the content for free. So for the 99% of my viewers who appreciate that, I appreciate you. I appreciate you helping in the growth of this channel. And together, we'll make this a great source of information for many, many years into the future. So with that being said, let me go into the next segment. In the next segment, Secretary Mnuchin was asked to address the question have you spoken to any Democrats to restart negotiations? And basically what the Secretary of the Treasury said was that he was ready to start negotiations at any point in time, as long as the Democrats would, reach out and had any new proposals. In fact, if you listen closely to what the Secretary of the Treasury said, because the President deferred to the Secretary of the Treasury about this particular question, he specifically said, I have spoken to several Democrats, not Schumer and Pelosi, and I'm happy to meet them at any time. And the president also chimed in and said that, the Democrats had enough time to make a deal and that they could have easily made a deal. And I thought this was very interesting because in any situation, it's important to listen to both sides of the argument. And I know there's a lot of partisanship, and there's a lot of, and again, I've mentioned this before, for me, it's not about the red or the blue, it's about the red, white, and blue. Let's listen closely to what Secretary Mnuchin said. Now, he's not in the frame. He's to the right of the president, which should be to the left side of your screen. So you won't see him, but you will hear him in this clip, and he'll talk about the outreach with the Democrats. There have been discussions and communication between the lead White House negotiator, Secretary of the Treasury, Steven Mnuchin, with other Democrats, although they haven't spoken to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer yet, and I believe that's just a matter of time. So let's listen closely to comments from the U.S. Treasury Secretary and the President about the outreach and the communication between the administration and the Democrats. Let's watch.
I wanted to ask Secretary Mnuchin, actually, have you spoken to any Democrats since Friday, or have they reached out to you at all about restarting negotiations?
I've spoken to several Democrats. I have not spoken to Schumer and Pelosi since then.
Do you expect would you reach out at all to them to try and negotiate?
Anytime they want to meet and they're willing to negotiate and have a new proposal, we're more than happy to meet.
They're hurting people very badly. This would have been so easy for them to do. And I saw that Senator Schumer said today on a show, I don't know which show, but he said today on a show that we should meet, we should do something. But, where has he been for, how many weeks have you been negotiating? Like 4? And they should do something. It would have been so much easier than doing it the way we did it. But we did something that's very important, and frankly, it's been well received, very well received. Go ahead, please.
Now, the next segment is also extremely interesting because the administration was asked, how fast can states actually execute on this? How fast can states get the money out to individuals who need it the most, to individuals who are depending on the $400 a week federal booster, for whom this is a lifeline? Now, I want you to pay close attention to the Treasury Secretary's response. He said most states will be able to execute within a week or two. See if you can catch this again, and let's watch this clip.
There's no delay to get these enhancement unemployment payments to Americans.
Yeah.
Can you give me your timetable? Are we talking next week, 2 weeks, a month?
Steve, what do you think?
Within the next week or two, we think the states will be able to execute.
So, Mr. Secretary, you're saying when?
I think within the next week or two, most of the states will be able to execute.
Got it. And
now, what's interesting is that the Vice President, Mike Pence, was asked the same question: how fast can we get help out to individuals who need it the most? How fast can states actually adapt to this? And also, is there any assistance for those who are facing evictions? Now, the Vice President was interviewed on Lou Dobbs tonight, where he discussed a number of topics, including the pandemic relief talks, reopening the economy, and executive orders. And this was on the Fox Business Channel. I will link you below to both the press conference with the President and the U.S. Treasury Secretary, as well as this interview by the Vice President. Let's listen to what the Vice President had to say about how soon individuals can get help and and what's the status of the eviction moratoriums. He said, and I quote, the unemployment insurance benefits should be implemented immediately. He also talked about the eviction moratorium, and let's listen to what the Vice President had to say on Lou Dobbs tonight. And this is from Fox Business, and I will link you to that clip below. Let's watch.
And taking action, as you say, to put Americans first, how soon will it be that they will be getting actual relief? How soon will people have money? How soon will they have help in deferring or perhaps giving them time to catch up on payments that would make evictions and foreclosures a moot point?
Well, the president's executive action about evictions, about student loans, takes effect the moment that he signs it. But today, on our weekly conference call with all the nation's governors, we assured them that the unemployment insurance benefits should be being implemented immediately. We also told them that they can use roughly $80 billion in CARES Act funding that hasn't been drawn down by states yet to pay their portion of the extension of unemployment insurance. Look, a lot of Americans are hurting, despite the fact that we had lost 22 million jobs at the height of this pandemic, and as of last week have added 9 million Americans back to the roles of working people in this country. There's many more Americans that need help. The president said we're not going to wait on Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer anymore. We're going to extend unemployment insurance benefits. The Department of Labor and Treasury are working to make that a reality. And we're working to put into effect that effort to defer payroll tax collections to the end of this year. Again, this is just another example of where President Trump said, look, if you're not willing to come to the table and negotiate in a way that puts Americans first, we're going to take action so that Americans cannot be used as pawns in the Democrats' effort to push another massive big government spending bill.
Now, this interview with the Vice President was also extremely important because of a number of other important factors. Like I mentioned earlier, the administration has been reaching out to, communicating with many governors from many states, and this is a good thing. This shows coordination between the federal government and the states, which is necessary for that money to flow from the federal government through the states to individuals who need it the most. I've talked about this in previous videos. There's the DRF money, that's a disaster relief fund, which is money from FEMA. And there's the CRF money. C stands for the name of the illness relief fund, and that's money that through the CARES Act was allocated to the states. So the DRF money plus the CRF money is money that's going to be utilized to pay the $400 a week benefits. $300 out of the $400 a week will come from the DRF fund, and $100 will come from the CRF fund, which is essentially federal money that was already pre-allocated to the states. Now, there are some provisions within the memorandum. If you look at the memorandum closely, that's on the White House website about this $400 a week extension, when this money runs out, and this money is expected to run out in about 4 to 5 weeks, then states will be asked to essentially come up with the $400 a week themselves. But so at this point, it's clear that that money is coming entirely from the federal government. So let's hear what Vice President Pence had to say. He said that state governors want Congress to act because the administration has been in touch with state governors. He said we want more support for families, and he also emphasized that schools must reopen. This is a very important segment of the interview. Let's listen to the Vice President of the United States.
And what I heard today on that conference call with governors is that they want to see the Congress act. I mean, look, President Trump's made it clear, in addition to the executive action that he's taken, we'd like to send another round of checks to the American people. Remember, it was $1,200 per American, $3,400 per family. The president's very open to doing just that. We want to get more support for businesses, the Paycheck Protection Program, and other programs that have allowed businesses to weather the storm of the coronavirus. And we want to get our schools open, Lou, and that's why the president's called for $105 billion to make it possible to open up our K-12 schools, our universities. And we said to the governors today, it's time for them to pick up the phone and call Nancy Pelosi and call Chuck Schumer and tell them to get off the dime, get back to the table, and let's get a deal done. But, not the kind of deal that Speaker Pelosi passed earlier in the House of Representatives. I heard the other day that the bill that they passed actually mentions marijuana more than it mentions jobs. And the American people don't want some pork barrel bill coming out of the Congress when we've got real needs for working families. We've got needs to get our schools open. And we're literally calling on every governor, especially Democrat governors across the country, to call on members of their party in Congress to say, let's get to the table, let's get a deal done that puts Americans first.
Now let's go back to the White House to listen to the president, because the president was specifically asked during his press conference, have all the governors signed on to this? Again, I wanted to focus on this during this video because the coordination between the federal government and the governors is crucial. If that doesn't exist, this $400 a week is not going to get to individuals. If that does exist, and it does look like that coordination does exist, which is encouraging, then that means the $400 a week can get to individuals quickly. In fact, I think it's a good idea for all my viewers and all my subscribers to type in the comments section below and let us know if you got the $400 a week and which state you are in. So for example, if you do start getting the $400 a week, just type on in the comments below, got the extra $400 a week in Connecticut, or got the extra $400 a week in California. Do that so that we know as a community whether this money is actually flowing through to you. Based on the signs that I'm seeing right now, it does indeed seem that the money should flow quickly, although I have presented the other side of the argument where individuals have said that this could take months to implement because it's a brand new program called the Lost Wages Assistance Program. So I want you to be aware of both possibilities, but I think the truth is, if you get the money, type it in the comment section below. All of us find out in real time. So here's what the president said in this clip. He said governors are anxious to get the money and we'll do it quickly. He also said, I have instructed the Secretary of the Treasury to do this as quickly as he can. Let's watch the clip from the President of the United States.
Have all the governors signed on to this?
We just had a meeting with the governors, and they were very anxious to get money for the people in their states. And if they, depending on the state, we have the right to do what we want to do. We can terminate the 25%, or we don't have to do that. So we'll see what it is. Depends on the individual state. But a lot of money will be going to a lot of people very quickly. And I've instructed the Secretary of the Treasury to move as quickly as he can. Right? So we'll get it done.
And in the final segment, which I believe is one of the most crucial segments of this video clip and an important aspect of our economic recovery. In fact, this is what the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said when he presented the pillars of the HEALS Act. He said kids were one of the main pillars of the HEALS Act, and I do believe that makes sense. The Vice President said we have to get our kids back to school. In fact, the Vice President specifically talked about the importance of getting kids back to school, why it's important for children to get back to school, why it's important for their emotional health, their psychological, their nutritional health, and how this would allow single parents to get back to work. Because think about it, if your kids can't go back to school, if you have to essentially become a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, you essentially can't go to work, and that affects your livelihood, that affects your ability to take care of your kids. That is something that creates a chain reaction. So let's listen and let's watch what Vice President Mike Pence had to say about the importance of getting kids back to school.
Look, we got to get our kids back to school. I mean, the experts, left, right, and center, have all recognized that distance learning is no replacement for in the classroom, in-person learning. We don't want our kids to fall behind academically, but what the American people also recognize is, kids with special needs, kids with learning disabilities, they get those services at school, and tens of millions of American kids get food and nutritional supplements at school. And so there's far beyond academic. There are real costs to America's kids, and that doesn't even take into account the costs on working families. Many governors, even some Democrat governors, are now beginning to announce that they support a return to back to school because they recognize that for an awful lot of Americans, if their kids can't go back to school, they can't go back to work. I heard a number the other day that only 20% of single parents in America can telework. That means 80% of single parents to go back to work have to go back to work. They got to have their kids back in school. That's why President Trump, from very early on, has made it clear we got to get our kids back. And just so everybody knows, the CDC issued a series of new guideposts a couple of weeks ago. But the first thing they issued was a paper about how it is in the public health interest of our kids to be back in school. So the CDC says for the health of our kids, we say for their academic health, for their future, and for working families, we got to get our kids back to school. It's one more reason why the Democrats on Capitol Hill need to come back to the table. We want to make sure our states have the resources as well as the guidance to safely reopen our school. They can. We're going to continue to stand for it and fight for it on behalf of working families everywhere.
That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video on an analysis of the implementation of the $400 a week unemployment benefit that's coming from the federal government, where the state governors stand, and it does seem like many of them are getting on board. They're anxious to get the money. This is based on what we heard from the president and the vice president, and the importance of children and the importance of kids in our economic recovery. If you did learn something new from this video, please click the like button below. It would mean a lot to me. It does help out the YouTube algorithm. It does tell YouTube exactly how valuable you found this video, and that would mean a lot to me personally. Every little effort counts. Every like counts, and I would really, really appreciate that. Me and my entire team work very hard to craft these videos, to analyze the clips, to identify the clips, to create them into a cohesive narrative, to do the editing that makes these videos easy and smooth to watch. A lot of the effort that we do is actually behind the scenes, so I would really appreciate you recognizing that and just liking the video. And also enable notifications so that you get instantly notified about future videos that we release going forward. We release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time most days of the week, so make sure you're subscribed so you get those important alerts. Also, if you want to hear from us on your cell phone, get your cell phone out, type out the text message ignition or the word time, and send that text message to 70,000. That's 70000, and then you'll get added to our alerts list and you'll get notified about future updates and alerts going forward. You can opt out at any time. You can also get added to our email list. And then once you're on our email list, we'll send you important email alerts. As long as you agree to a quick disclaimer, you can opt out at any time from the email list as well. I so appreciate you watching. You are an important part of our community. Our community has been growing very, very rapidly. And I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye. you.